Hey everybody, welcome to another video solution and review of a Hanayama puzzle. This is the cylinder. As with all Hanayama puzzles, they're made out of die-cast metal. And this is a level 4 out of 6. Again, the difficulty will vary depending on whether you buy the Hanayama puzzle from Japan or you get it from the United States distributor, namely places like chains like Walmart or Barnes & Noble. But in this case, for both places, the original Japanese Hanayama store and the US distributor, this is considered a level 4 out of 6, which I don't know how to feel about that. I mean, I think in a lot of respects, this is a pretty challenging puzzle. I don't know if I've done enough of them to be able to say with any definitive authority whether this should be a 4. I did manage to solve this just by fiddling around and moving it around, and eventually just sort of fell apart and popped apart. And then I had a lot harder time putting it back together again. And so I guess you can argue that any puzzle that you can accidentally take apart probably is deserving of a 4. I used to say my rule of thumb is if you can solve the puzzle just sort of by tinkering with it, but you have some difficulty putting it back together, I think level 4 is fair. And that's indeed what happened with the marble and cylinder and donut, for instance. I was able to do that. I also did that with the Hanayama square, which was given a level 6 in the US version and a level 5 from the Japanese version, and I felt that the square was probably closer to a level 4, maybe even a 3, because it didn't require much tinkering and maneuvering to have it fall apart in your hands. For level 5, my criteria is that you can't ever get a level 5, in my opinion, to fall apart just by tinkering. It's very, very difficult to do so. And it requires something special to solve it, and certainly there should be no shame if, in the end of the day, you decide to go to YouTube because you just can't figure it out. And level 6, in my opinion, is reserved for puzzles where even going to YouTube, there's actually going to be significant difficulty and challenge solving it. Even with YouTube, you might have to go to multiple YouTube videos and either play it at 50% speed or freeze frame because the puzzles are so complicated. And there are certainly some versions of that are out there. So let's focus on this. This is the cylinder, and level 4 notwithstanding, it's one of my favorite puzzles because it's really, really fun to solve and put back together. And you solve it, I think, a little bit differently each time. And once I solve this for you, you'll understand why it is a little bit different each time. It's made to be solved as if you're cracking a safe or a combination lock. And it really is a lot of fun. I think the instructions say, you can pretend that you're a suave, master thief drinking a martini while you're next to the safe cracking it, which is a little bit fanciful, but definitely conveys the mood. So it's time for us to solve this. If you don't want to be spoiled, then look away now. The review portion basically ends. Again, love the material, love the metal aspect of it, love the gears and the movement. And it's right up there with one of my favorite puzzles just to sort of fiddle around and to solve. Because again, there's a little bit of mystery every time you do it in terms of how you're going to go about it. All right, so here, let's analyze. You have 2 rings, and it can turn freely, okay? And within it, you have three metal pieces evenly divided, both here and also here. and on the surface, it's completely identical. So when you first get the puzzle, there's really nothing you can do other than turn the rings. And so the first thing you need to do is you need to gently begin turning the rings. You can turn them either separately or together. I tend to do it separately. So I just turn the ring at the bottom. You see I'm rotating it. I do it counterclockwise. You could do it clockwise. And I do it until it catches something on the inside. And you can see that it's now turning the pieces in. And if you do, and you kind of lock it in, you can see that one of the pieces will drop. Okay. And again, this may occur either faster or slower for you, but the idea is you need to be turning these two rings together until you line them up to the point where one of the pieces falls down. Now, at this point, just to give you an idea of what is going on, inside these two rings, there's an inner ledge. Okay, and so the inner ledge goes not all the way around the circle, but like 2/3 of the way around the circle, I believe. And so there is a third where the ledge is missing. And so obviously if you line up the missing portion of the ledge for both circles, then one of the pieces will then drop, because that's the area where, again, from here to here, there is no ledge. Okay? Now, your job, once you have found the position where one of the pieces drops, is to not touch the two rings anymore. Do not rotate it anymore until later on in the game, so to speak. Because, of course, if you do that, you're going to align the ledges across the space, and then none of these guys are going to drop. And that would be a mistake. And that's the number one mistake that most people, including myself, did, is when this thing dropped, I would keep spinning the two circles, thereby messing up the ledges internally. Now, obviously, when you're doing this for the first time, you don't really have a clue what's going on, and so it's a very common mistake to do, and it's going to make the puzzle a lot more challenging, because you can't really continue with the solution if the ledges are essentially misaligned, because none of the other two parts will drop or do anything with the ledges in place all the way around. Okay? You need to have the ledges aligned here so that there's no ledge here internally, so these things can continue to drop. Okay, so with that going on, one piece goes down. What do we do now? Okay, here we go. Well, next what you need to do is you need to see if you can move the internal pieces within the circle without moving the circle. So notice that my thumb and my fingers are kind of holding the two rings now immobile, stacked together. And then I'm going to try to move it. Okay, now as you can see, I cannot move it. And I can't move it because this little piece on the inside is the wrong piece, okay? And this will again become more evident when I take that apart, the puzzle. There's a special piece. These three pieces are identical only on the outside, but on the inside, there's a little bit of a difference. So if you can't move it, you're at a dead end. You need to now get another one of these pieces to drop and see if that will move or rotate internally. Now this is the tricky part. It kind of depends on the friction of your fingers, but you have to push it back up. It should up and down freely, right? You push it back up, and then you have to, once it goes back up, you are now going to be able to rotate it inside freely. And so I do that by taking this here, and then just kind of gently twisting it. Okay, you see how I'm moving it around now? And it does require friction from your fingertips on the metal to get it to move, or else it's really hard to rotate it internally while you're keeping the outside circles immobile. So hopefully you can see what I'm doing, or you can just put your finger down here, just kind of gently try to twist it. You see how it's moving, but it's just hard to show. Okay, so this is the second piece. So this was the piece that had fallen in here and it wasn't moving. So we rotated it out of the way with it up, and now the second piece comes and now it drops. Now let's see if this thing moves. So as you can see, it also is a fail, right? So we move it up, and now we're gonna rotate until this piece goes here and drops. And we see if this piece is so-called special. So here we go again. You see how it's like really difficult to rotate the inside? You have to have the right friction to do that. You gently rotate it until about the right spot. Okay, here it goes, it fell. So remember, we tried this, now this is the third one. Does it move? Okay, so it doesn't move. So basically all three of these are failures, right? None of them rotates internally when this thing drops. But remember that we're only on one side. We now can flip it over. Again, do not touch the rings. If you flip it over, you now have a new set of three. Now let's get this guy to drop. So let's just, oh, there it is. Okay, so one dropped. So remember, we tried the three here and dropping it didn't work, right? So now we're gonna drop here. Let's see if that works. Do you see something different? So you see how now this is different, and different as these puzzles go is good. So the fact that one of the pieces dropped and now you're able to grab this and rotate it freely, I hope you can go back to the earlier portion of this video and see how that is different. Earlier, if you try to rotate, it would be stuck, right? But here, this piece went down and now it can rotate freely. So now you're in business. You have found the special piece that allows you to do that. The next step is, while continuing to maintain rigidity of the two gears, of the two circles, notice that we have not allowed these two to move at all because we want to keep this area here that has no ledge internally. We're going to gently turn it around until one of the pieces falls. Okay, so there you go. Now the second piece has fallen. Okay, this can only happen if you're able to freely rotate the inside, right? It can only happen if you're freely able to rotate it, okay? So here it goes. Let's do it again. Okay, come on, so it fell. Now, this falling has multiple possibilities. For instance, there is a chance, if you're lucky, that this could fall deep so that you have three layers, top, middle, and then bottom. That's if you're very lucky indeed. If that happens, then you just skip to the last step. You're essentially almost done with solving the puzzle. But most of the time, it only falls one level, so it's equal to this. Okay, it's on the same level as this. And the end game, so to speak, is you do want this piece to fall all the way down. Now, obviously, that's not happening. And when it falls here, you cannot move the internal pieces anymore. It's stuck. Okay. If you move this up, you can still move it. But if this thing drops, it locks it in, so you can't move it. So how do you know if you can get this piece to drop? At this point, and only at this point, you need to rotate the cylinders. So what I do here is I put my thumb here, and I just sort of remember that the two, I'm going to move it around. I might have to recreate the original position here. So I put my thumbs on opposite ends so I'll know that this has to come back to the original position. I know how to get back to this position because I'm about to deviate from it. So hopefully, let me try to explain a little bit better. I'm about to rotate the two rings. In doing so, I'm going to screw up the internal ledges. The hope is by moving the internal ledges, I'm going to get this guy to drop. But it may not happen. If it doesn't happen, I have to recreate, again, the ledge. And so I have to memorize where this is. And you can't really memorize it because everything's the same. So what do? I use my thumb to mark the position of the top two circles. Okay, so I'm going to gently start rotating. Rotate a little bit here. Nothing's happening. Rotate a little bit here. Nothing's happening, right? Okay, so because nothing's happening, I'm going to recreate the ledge. My two thumbs tell me where they're supposed to be. Right about here. Keep the circles now immobile. And I'm going to lift this up, and I'm going to rotate it and try to get this guy to drop. It should drop at the same place. Okay, see? So now that dropped. And then I'm going to, you see that? I moved a little bit, and what did it do? It dropped all the way down. So now you can see there's how many levels? There's a top, a middle, and a bottom. You want this configuration. 3 levels, each piece taking up a different level. Okay, so get all of that settled. And now you are ready to solve the puzzle. What you do is you can now rotate this guy on the inside. And if you do so, you just rotate it this way. If you rotate the middle one counterclockwise, if you rotate all the way to it, you can't rotate anymore, the bottom will fall right out. Okay, so this is piece number 1. And then we're going to rotate. Now it's just a matter of trial and error. Just rotate around, and then the second piece will fall off. This is piece number 2. And then the third piece, of course, also just kind of comes out by itself. And then the 2 rings separate. And I think now that the piece is out, you can clearly see that the ledges I'm talking about, and you can clearly see how the ledges are now lined up. And so this is the ledges that the internal pieces are sitting, and then over here, there's no ledge at all, and that's where it falls out. Okay, so we're gonna open up, just like that, and then we're going to put it here. You have now disassembled the cylinder, just like you cracked a lock. And the next segment, I'm gonna show you how to assemble it. I'll see you after the break. Okay, welcome back after the cut. So now we're going to reassemble the cylinder. Before doing that, let's now analyze our 5 pieces to get a better idea of what's going on. So you can see that these are the 2 rings. Notice that the rings have asymmetry, meaning that they are beveled on one end, and on the other end, of course, they are not beveled, okay? Internally, you see now the ledge, right? Hopefully you can see the ledge more clearly. You can see the ledge going all the way around here, and there's no ledge here. And this, of course, the smooth part without the ledge corresponds to the 1/3 portion where these pieces are gonna go, right? It's like a pie in 3 parts. And it's identical on this side. The 2 circles are identical. So they both have ledges, and you're going to put them together so that the ledges are adjacent to each other, which coincidentally is also where you have the non-beveled edge, right? So you put it together, and then you can see that you can rotate, and as you rotate, the ledges will move. The bottom has a ledge, the top has a ledge, and if you, for instance, go like this, you're gonna have a ledge around the entire circumference of this circle, right? And if you keep moving, there'll be ledge, ledge, ledge. And if you keep twisting, you're gonna eventually twist so that you line up the ledges like so. And in this configuration, when you twist it, you're gonna see that on this side, it's completely smooth. And on this side, the ledges are overlapping each other now. And this is the configuration you're gonna use to get rid of the internal pieces. That's what allows you to drop everything down. So hopefully that gives you some idea of the inner mechanism of this beautiful puzzle, okay? So that's something, again, to learn. So we're gonna put that aside for now. And now let's take a look at the 3 pieces here. So 2 pieces have engraving on it. This one, as you can see, says the name of the puzzle, cylinder. And this piece is engraved with the name of the company, Hanayama. Other than the engraving, the 2 pieces are identical. Okay, to take a look here, completely identical and also symmetrical. You can turn them upside down with no problems, okay? So symmetrical, identical. However, the 3rd piece has no engraving and is in fact quite unique. The first thing to notice, and I'm gonna put one of these guys down and compare the 2, is that it has a little bit more grooves on the outside. So notice here, there's grooves, 1, 2, 3, whereas here there's only 2 grooves, and then you have this sort of, indentation here. This one doesn't have an indentation. It has 3 grooves. So hopefully you can clearly see the difference here, okay, between the 2. I'm gonna put this down. And in addition to this piece not being engraved and being different, it's asymmetrical, meaning at one end it has a notch right here. And this notch, you can follow this notch all the way through. That's the top notch, okay? And the bottom, of course, has no notch. So you cannot actually get away with flipping it upside down, because now then the notch, of course, would be at the bottom versus the top. So this is asymmetrical and also different from these two pieces down here. And this is the key piece. This so-called no-name piece without engraving is the piece that you're trying to find blind, essentially, in the beginning of the puzzle. And this is the piece that gives you that freedom of mobility internally that allows you to solve it. Okay, so now that we know sort of the inner workings of this puzzle, how are we going to put it back together? You start again by putting the two rings next to each other so that the ledges are completely lined up. You grab one of the engraved pieces. It doesn't matter which one. I will choose cylinder. And then you simply put it into into your cylinder. Again, making sure that the ledges are lined up. And you simply lay it in place. Okay, and it should snap right in to the ledge, like so. And it should be flush with the top edge. So now you have the first piece in position. Notice that the ledges are still lined up in there. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's kind of hard to get everything together, but notice that this is snapped in place. Not really snapped, but layered in place nicely. Flush with the top edge. It can rotate a little bit, and then the ledges are lined up. So that's the first piece. The second piece is going to be our special piece, okay? The one without engraving, and you want to put it so that the groove here goes onto the topmost lip or the topmost ledge. So how do you do that? Make sure that the groove is facing up. Well, a little bit clumsy. So make sure that the groove is facing up. And then we're going to put it through the hole here, bottom up. And if you can't, you have to maybe rotate it a little bit over this way, okay? So it's going to get in there somewhere. Okay. Again, I'm trying to do this on the camera, which is a little bit annoying. So I'm going to move it over a little bit more. You just want to create that space that it can go up. Okay, so anyways, finally got that space. Shove it up. And then you're going to push up until the groove, seats onto the top ledge, okay? By the way, that's the only ledge it can seat. It can't seat on the lower ledge. So, just fiddle with it and keep trying to rotate it until it gets in there. I did it once. Okay, so here goes. Okay, and you just rotate it all the way through. So now that is seated. Now we've recreated the top, flush with the top edge, and now we have the special piece, one piece down. That's the middle one in. All right, and then finally, we have the last piece. Again, engraved, and we're gonna go to the bottom, and there's no place for it quite yet. And we shove it up. You're kind of in, but you want to rotate it until you can go all the way as high up as you can go. Right here, it will allow you to go all the way up to essentially to the second ledge here, okay? You can't go any higher than this. You are now stopped by the second topmost ledge. Once that happens, you can then rotate the existing two pieces clockwise until it lines up here. And when it lines up here, you're going to be able to push the last piece all the way up flush to the top of the upper circle, okay? You saw what I just did. And then once you have that, you can continue to rotate. So you can grab this piece down here. This piece here corresponds to this piece here. And then you can rotate it internally. Okay, rotate it internally, come on, until you line up remember, inside there's going to be this area where there's no ledge at all, right? It's going to be right around here. You keep rotating, and when you hit that area where there's no ledge, you're going to be able to push this piece also flush with the top edge. Now that all three are flush, you just have to, now you break the ledge. You break the two ledges by just rotating, and when you rotate it, you'll prevent these guys from falling. You do a random little spin. Spin it around, spin it around. And so when you do that, you've reconstituted a cylinder. And so hopefully now you understand how you're solving it. The first thing you're doing, I'm going to do it again real slowly, is you are twisting the two circles to line up the ledges so that one of them drops. When that happens, you realize now that this area here has no ledge. You've lined up the ledges here. But the problem is you have to find out whether this piece is the special piece. Now that we've taken it apart, you know that one of the pieces has Hanayama, one of the pieces has cylinder, and one of the pieces has nothing. And the piece that we need to drop is the piece with no engraving, that special unique piece. Because if that drops, we're going to be able to move the internal pieces and then get everything lined up. If it's the Hanayama or the if it's the Hanayama or the cylinder piece that drops, it won't do it, it'll lock. And also, if it's our special piece but in the wrong orientation, it will not move. So let's try it out. See? So we got a little bit lucky, right? Remember that the last time we had to try 1, 2, 3, and then turn it over 4, 5 before the fifth one dropped line us to rotate internally, correct? But here we know that the very first piece we got lucky. So 1 out of 6 tries, it's doing great. Now, what happens if it's not that? Well, I'm going to twist it around. So we know that this is the piece, right? But let's just go for another piece just to see what happens. So this piece drops, and now you see, you try to rotate it, you can't, right? So that's how you differentiate between, the so-called magical piece, okay, the one you're wanting. So this should be our piece again, if I didn't screw it up too bad. And as you can see, that's moving. And the minute that moves, you're in luck, because now you can move around until the second piece drops, right here. And again, let's keep the orientation correct. Left thumb up, right thumb on the bottom cylinder. We're going to now break the ledges. We're going to rotate a little bit and see if we can get one of those things to drop to the third level. So obviously that's not doing it. So this is the wrong piece, so to speak. Let's move it up. Let's rotate and get this piece to drop. Okay, there it is. So this piece dropped. See, my rings were a little bit off. You see that? And because we're a little bit off, it didn't drop nice. It kind of dropped a little bit, but I just kind of jiggled the ring a little bit, and then it dropped again. Let's hold on to this. Okay, 1 thumb up, 1 thumb bottom, so we kind of know where it is. Okay, see, if I move it just a little bit, it dropped all the way down. You see that? Now, once you have the pieces at the 3 different levels, you rotate the internal piece. I always forget which way you rotate. I think you rotate it counterclockwise, and then one of the pieces will drop straight down, and then that allows you to drop the second piece, which is a special piece. And of course, it's inconsequential to take out the third piece. And look, the ledges are perfectly lined up, and we're done. So there we have it again. And then to put it together, we line up the ledge right here. We get one of these. I'll choose, again, cylinder. And then we'll put it on the inside, out of the way, until it's flush with the top lip. That would give us room to take this guy. Remember, ledge has to go up. So we'll put this up, and then we're going to catch the top ledge. Go up and catch the top ledge with a groove. Rotate that out of the way. Here's the bottom one, Hanayama. Again, you're going to push up, push all the way up. Once all of that's done, we're going to move this clockwise. This will go all the way up. And then we're going to rotate that clockwise until we get to the area with no ledge. Put that up. Spin. And we're good. Now, of course, if you do it like this, because you just reconstituted the cylinder, you know that the special piece in the right orientation is going to be one of those three, right? But of course, if you put it aside, you roll it over a little bit, at that point, you really have no idea. And so it is always a little bit random. So every time you do the puzzle, one of the things I like about it is you have to go through, kind of the steps and get lucky. You have to try to see which one of the three and in which orientation is going to be that magic piece, the so-called no-name piece that is the key to unlocking the puzzle. So knowing the solution, it still takes you some time to go through it. And every time you do it, there is a little element of the unknown, and you do still feel like you're cracking the safe. And so, in my opinion, while this is definitely not the hardest of the Hanayama puzzles, it's definitely one of the most fun to do. As you can see, even knowing how to do it, you still have to sort of struggle a little bit, and you're still trying to have to figure out, hey, what is the right, this first part's blind, right? So what is the right orientation where we can line things up and one of these little pieces is gravity is gonna drop one of them, right? So obviously when you're starting this, you can't do it this way because it's not gonna drop. So gravity does help you when you're doing it. So see, this puzzle is sort of making me look bad now, right? I'm trying to get this thing going, and obviously none of the pieces are falling. Just have to be patient. You know that it's going to do it eventually. You can see maybe this piece is a little bit, there you go, see? So, you have to jiggle with it. You have to move it, look at the hint. So as you can see, this dropped, and now see, it's not moving, so you're gonna move it up. And then you rotate the internal part to get the second piece, this piece to drop. That doesn't do anything. Let's try the third piece. And you see, that's the magic piece, okay? So see how the other two how did it rotate? This one does. And then when it does, you're going to, come on, one of them is gonna drop. You know it, there it goes. And look, what fortune. So I got to show you the really lucky situation where it dropped all the way down and made the 3 levels immediately. Okay, remember, it didn't do that the first 2 times we did it, and you had to kind of jiggle some more and try the other one. So this one happened to be perfect and dropped all the way down. And then I'm not going to do it again, but what you do is then you just turn this thing, I think, counterclockwise, and it will drop this down, okay? So anyways, you don't need me to do that. We're going to go all the way up, move this up, over there. So there you have it. The Hanayama cylinder, definitely one of my favorite puzzles. Really, really fun to solve. I hope you can now appreciate the internal mechanism and how you solve it and why it's so fun to do. Yeah, definitely get this one. It's a classic, and it's, like I said, in my opinion, one of the most fun. It's a level 4, not so difficult that you feel overwhelmed or impossible to do, and something that you can do many, many times. And I've solved this many, many times. Still have a lot of fun. Enjoy doing it. Until next time, do take care.